Have you ever stopped to think why you'll happily grab a coffee for $5 one day, but then bulk if it's six the next? Or, why a big sale sign can make you buy something you didn't even know you wanted? Well, it turns out those aren't just random whims. They're actually driven by this incredibly powerful economic force called demand. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and decode its secrets. Seriously, by the time we're done, you're going to see it absolutely everywhere. Okay, so to make all this real, let's bring in a character. This is Rajiv Agarwal. He's the CEO of Aroma Tea, and he's got a multi-million-dollar question on his mind. Should he jump into the green tea business? Now, his entire decision, his whole company's next move, it all boils down to one single thing: figuring out the market's desire for green tea. So we're going to follow his problem and build the exact toolkit he needs to get that answer.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll dive into the CEO's dilemma. Then we'll build our toolkit piece by piece. We'll start with the number one rule of demand, then look at the hidden factors that can change everything, check out some weird moments when the rule totally breaks, and finally, we'll get to the master tool for any business, something called the elasticity gauge.
All right, section 1, the CEO's dilemma. So our guy Rajiv needs some serious answers. Questions like, will people actually buy his green tea? How in the world does he figure out what to charge? And what happens if the price of coffee goes up? Does that help him or hurt him? These are the big questions of demand that literally every business has to face. Okay, moving on to section 2, the first rule of demand. It's time to get our hands on our very first tool. Now, this one is the bedrock of pretty much all of economics. It's a principle so simple, so intuitive, that you already live by it every single day, even if you've never heard its fancy name: the law of demand. So, what is this big law? It's actually super simple. When the price of something goes up, people will buy less of it. And when the price goes down, they'll buy more. That's it. It's this inverse relationship, kind of like an economic seesaw, that pretty much guides every single purchase we make. Let's look at a super simple example right here with this demand schedule for ice cream. Check it out. At 60 rupees a cup, nobody's buying. It's too expensive. But drop that price to 40 and suddenly people are demanding 4 cups a week. And if you lower it all the way down to just 10 rupees, bam, demand shoots up to 10 cups. You're literally watching the law of demand play out in real time. So yeah, forget all the complicated jargon for a second. The most important thing to remember is this. There's basically a seesaw effect going on between price and the amount people want. When one goes down, the other goes up. And that right there is the fundamental starting point for understanding how any market works. But if it were really that simple, well, running a business would be a piece of cake, right? The truth is, price is only part of the story. Our desire to buy something is influenced by all these other powerful forces. I call them the hidden shifters, and they can change the entire game for a product, sometimes practically overnight. And here they are, the hidden shifters. Think back to our CEO and his green tea. Demand could suddenly explode not because he lowered the price, but because, say, a new health study comes out that makes green tea super fashionable. Or maybe the price of coffee, which is a substitute, right, suddenly goes through the roof. Even things like your personal income or just the expectation that a big sale is coming up can totally shift demand. Now, this is an absolutely critical distinction for anyone in business. When our CEO just changes the price of his tea, he's only causing a movement along his existing demand curve. People buy a bit more or a bit less. But when one of those hidden shifters comes into play, like that big health report, it causes a full shift of the entire curve. And this is huge. It means that at every single price point, way more people now want his tea. It's a whole new ballgame. Okay, so now that we've got the main rule down pat, let's look at the really fun stuff, the exceptions. These are the rare, pretty fascinating cases where the law of demand just gets completely flipped on its head. So on one side, you've got what are called Veblen goods. Think of a super high-end luxury watch. For these items, the crazy high price is the entire appeal. Making it more expensive can actually increase demand because it screams status. Then on the other side, you have a much weirder case, Giffen goods. The classic story here is something like potatoes during a famine. If the price of potatoes goes up, the poorest families have so little money left that they can't afford anything else, like meat. So what do? They're forced to cut out the meat and buy even more of the now pricier potatoes just to get enough calories to survive. It's a wild, counterintuitive exception. All right, so we know that price changes demand. But for our CEO, Rajiv, the real multi-million-dollar question is, by how much, right? Just knowing the direction isn't enough. He needs to measure the impact. And this brings us to our final and honestly most powerful tool in the kit, the elasticity gauge.
I mean, this is the exact question every business owner has to ask themselves before they touch their prices. If you raise the price by 10%, are your sales just going to dip a little bit, or are they going to fall right off a cliff? The answer to that question can make or break a company.
And that is exactly what elasticity measures. The best way to think about it is like a sensitivity meter. It tells you with a number precisely how much your customers are going to react to a price change. Is their demand for your product kind of rigid and unmoving, or is it super flexible and responsive?
And the way economists measure this is actually pretty straightforward. If the elasticity number is greater than 1, we say demand is elastic. That means customers are really sensitive, and even a small price hike could cause a huge drop in sales. But if the number is less than 1, demand is inelastic. This means customers aren't that bothered, and you can probably raise the price without losing too many of them.
Let's make this super concrete. Think about salt. The demand for salt is what we'd call highly inelastic. It's cheap, it's a necessity, and there are basically no good substitutes. If the price doubled tomorrow, you'd probably grumble, but you'd still buy it. Now compare that to a specific brand of car. Demand for that is highly elastic. If the price goes up even a little bit, you've got dozens of other brands to choose from. See? The availability of substitutes is one of the biggest drivers of elasticity. And check this out. Elasticity doesn't just work for price. It can also measure how demand responds to changes in our income. Look at this fascinating real-world number. It turns out that when customers' incomes went up by 10%, the demand for used cars actually fell by 3.75%. How crazy is that? Well, it's because with more money in their pockets, people started upgrading to new cars. Economists have a name for things we buy less of as we get richer. They call them inferior goods. And this is a perfect, real-world example of income elasticity in action. So let's circle all the way back to our CEO, Rajiv. He's not just guessing anymore, is he? He now has a complete conceptual toolkit. He gets the basic law of demand. He knows to look out for those hidden shifters like new health trends. He's even prepared for the strange exceptions. And most importantly, he can use the idea of elasticity to predict exactly how a price change is going to impact his bottom line. And now, it's your turn. Think about something you buy all the time. Maybe your morning coffee. Is your demand for it elastic or inelastic? I mean, if the price jumped 20%, would you stop buying it or would you just pay up? And what could make you want more of it? A pay raise? A cool new cafe opening next to your office? See, those are the hidden shifters. The big takeaway here is that the principles of demand aren't just for CEOs and boardrooms. They are the invisible script that guides the economic choices we all make every single day.